Good afternoon, students. This is Reema, your biology educator from Vista's Learning, and I welcome you all to Vista's Learning. So what is Vista's Learning? Vista's Learning is an online platform where we provide quality education for all. Here you will get all the videos from grade 1 to grade 12. So to get all the benefits from our channel, do subscribe to it, like, share it with your friends, family members so that someone out there get access to quality education. So what we are going to learn today? In my previous class, I have given you all the overview of class 11 syllabus, right? So today we are going to start with a new chapter, right? So what is that chapter? Your first chapter of biology, that is your chapter number 1, which is the living world. It's all about the living organism. So in chapter 1, we are going to learn about the living world, all the living organism, and today will be our lecture number 1. Before that, let us see the overview what you are going to learn under this chapter, right? So look here, the living world, right? Under this, what you are going to learn? You are going to learn about the characteristics of living organism, that is your growth, reproduction, metabolism and self-consciousness. Next is what you are going to learn? Nomenclature, taxonomic categories and also the taxonomical aids. So under nomenclature, you will be learning about the binomial nomenclature. And under taxonomic categories, you will be learning about the obligate categories. And in the taxonomical aids, you will learning be about the herbarium, then botanical gardens, museum and the zoological parks. Is that clear? This is all about chapter 1. All these things we are going to learn under this chapter. Now this is one of the easiest chapter and one of the interesting chapter. You know, biology is all about the living organisms, right? So in this chapter, we are going to learn about the living organisms. We all are surrounded by millions of living organisms on this planet, right? So there is a diversity in living organisms. There is around 8.6 million species of living organisms, and each and every living organism is unique. They have got different characteristics, clear? And also they have a different habitat. Some of the living organisms, they live in the forest, some live in the house, some they live in the seawater, some also they live in the desert, right? So this is all about the living organism we are going to learn under this chapter. So today, the topics which we are going to cover in this session is your meaning of living. We will be learning about the meaning of living. Then we will learn about the characteristics of living organisms. Next, we will see about the pattern of questions in CBSE examination. We will see how is the pattern of questions. Then some of the important questions and MCQ we will solve at last, okay? And some interesting facts too I am going to share with you all about the living organism. So this is going to be interesting. So listen carefully. Now tell me, what is living? What do you mean by living? When we talk about living, what comes to your mind? What makes living organisms unique? You know that there are living and non-living organisms, right? What is the characteristics of living? Because we all are able to grow, reproduce, right? We all are able to feel the surroundings, isn't it? So, living is an organism which is able to grow, which is able to reproduce, in which metabolism takes place and also has self-consciousness. Clear? So living, what do you mean by living? A living being is an organism which is able to grow, then reproduce. Next is you're able to sense the environment and also having the features like your metabolism and able to self-replicate. Clear? So if an organism is able to function all these characteristics, then only we call it as a living. You see non-living organisms, right? In them it is not present. That's why they are non-living. Clear? Okay. Now can you give me any example of living beings? Yes. Human beings, plants, microorganisms, we all are living beings. Right? So see some of the examples of living beings. You can see in this picture. Clear? Okay. Now next, let us move to the characteristics of living organisms. What are the characteristics of living organisms? As I have already said that growth, right? So now we will see about the characteristics of living organisms. Next is, first is your cellular structure. Okay. First characteristics is your cellular structure. Next is your growth. Then it's your reproduction. Next, metabolism and self-consciousness. These are the various characteristics of the living organisms. All the living organisms have this characteristics. Is it clear? Okay. Okay. Now what you can see in this picture? You all have been studying about the cell. The first characteristic is your cellular structure, right? So we all living beings are made up of cell and its products. So cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. All the living organisms are made up of cell and its products. So each and every cell organelle performs a specific function in the living organisms. Clear? So, see, individual components in cell helps to carry out life process. So, inside the cell, we have cell organelles like mitochondria, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus. These all the cell organelles, it helps in functioning properly inside our body. Because of the cell, our body, it can multiply because the cell divides. Clear? So cell division takes place, that's why there is a growth, there is an increase in height, that's why we are able to reproduce. Clear? Okay. Next is all living organisms are made up of cell, which I have already said. Alright. So cellular structure. Next is your growth. What do you mean by growth? What is growth? Do you see growth in non-living organisms? Yes, we do see growth in non-living organisms. Clear? So, but in non-living organisms, the growth is external. Clear? But in living organism, the growth is your internal. Now, here you can see this picture. What is this? This is a plant, right? This from a small seed, the plant is growing slowly, gradually, isn't it? So you can see that growth is an irreversible process. The bigger plant, it will not turn back into smaller ones, right? So it's an irreversible process. Now what happens in growth? When growth occurs, it leads to the increase in mass and increase in number. What increases? Our cell number increases. Clear? And the mass also increases. Next is your growth occurs by division of your cell. Clear? So growth occurs by cell division only. When the cell divides, then only the growth takes place in our body. So growth will lead to the development in an organism. It's because of growth we are developing slowly and gradually. Clear? Okay. Next is your growth leads to the increase in size. Because of growth we are growing slowly and gradually. Once you were small in size, right? But now you are growing in your height, right? Because there is an increase in cell number and also there is an increase in cell mass. There is an increase in number of mass, right? Increase in mass and cell number. Clear? And as I already said that growth is an irreversible change. It is an irreversible change. We cannot get back that again. Next, in plants, growth occurs throughout life. Now, what do you mean by this? In plants, they can grow throughout their life. Why, you know? Because they have got meristematic cells. There is a region in plants where the meristematic cells are very active. It's because of the meristematic cells the plants can grow throughout their life. Whereas in animals, they grow only up to a certain age. So in case of animals, we will grow up to a certain age. Have you ever seen the old person growing, increasing in height? No, right? So there is the animals, they grow up to a certain age only. All right? Understood? Okay. Now let us see the types of growth. What are the two types you can see here? One is your intrinsic growth, another is your extrinsic growth, right? What do you mean by this intrinsic and extrinsic? What is this? Intrinsic means the growth is occurring from within, from inside, and extrinsic means from outside. Clear? Now your nails are also growing, right? How it is growing? It is from inside, right? We are increasing in height, it is from inside. So that is the intrinsic growth. Now what is extrinsic growth? Extrinsic growth means it is from outside. For example, the girls, they wear heels, right? So when they are wearing the heels, they will increase their height. That is the extrinsic growth. For example, the mountains, you will see that it's becoming larger and bigger in size, right? It's because of the extrinsic growth. Clear? So that is intrinsic and extrinsic growth are the two types of growth. Okay. Are you clear about the growth? Okay. Now let us move to reproduction. What is reproduction? Reproduction is a biological process by which organism gives rise to offsprings. What do you mean by offsprings? Offsprings are the progeny, okay? So from the parent, the daughter cells are being formed, right? So the offsprings are the progeny. So reproduction is a biological process. It takes place in each and every living organisms. But there are also some organisms which cannot reproduce. It's because of the chromosomal abnormalities or the abnormalities in their reproductive organs. So there are two types of reproduction. One is your asexual reproduction and another is your sexual reproduction. So in case of asexual reproduction, there is only one parent involved, whereas in sexual reproduction, both the parents are involved. That is, two parents are involved. Now let us see the difference between the asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. Now, what can you see here? What happens in asexual reproduction? Only one parent is involved, right? You can see here that only one parent is involved in asexual reproduction, isn't it? Whereas in sexual reproduction, what happens? Both the parents are involved. In sexual, both the parents are involved. So in asexual, there is no fusion of gametes taking place. In asexual, there is no fusion of gametes taking place. Whereas in sexual reproduction, there will be fusion of gametes. That is, fusion of gamete is taking place. Next difference is your only one chromosome is present. Whereas in sexual, there is more than one chromosome. So they perform their all the activities with only one chromosome only. So they have only one chromosome. Do you know the total number of chromosomes in human body? It's your 46. Total number is your 46, and that is 23 pairs of chromosomes we have. Okay. Next is asexual reproduction. Where it takes place? It takes place in only unicellular organisms. So asexual reproduction, it will take place in unicellular organism, whereas we will see sexual reproduction in the multicellular organisms. Clear? Okay. Now the cell division is mitosis. So in asexual reproduction, the cell division, that is mitosis. You know, there are two types of cell division. One is your mitosis, another is your meiosis. Whereas in sexual reproduction, you will see cell division is meiosis, which is followed by mitosis. That is, meiosis and mitosis both are involved in sexual reproduction. Next, the offsprings are identical to their parents. That means they are the clones of each other. So the offsprings will be identical. Have you seen the fish, the frog? They are similar, right? Even the starfish. So they are identical to their parents. They are the clones of each other. So what do you mean by clones? Clones are morphologically and genetically similar organism. Clear? They are morphologically and genetically similar organism. When I say genetically, means all the genetic components, the makeup, genetic makeup is same like their parents, and morphology means the physical appearance. Clear? So morphologically and genetically they are similar. Asexual reproduction in them. Clear? Next is your sexual reproduction. So the offsprings are not identical to their parents. So in sexual reproduction there is a variation. Variation takes place. We are not similar to our parents, right? We are not exactly similar to our parents. We have some characteristics, but we are not similar to our parents. Clear? So that is, the offsprings are not identical to their parents. So are you clear with the difference between the asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction? Are you clear? Understood? Okay. Okay, now I was discussing about asexual. You already know what happens. Only one parent is involved, as I have already said. Then next is your no fusion of gametes takes place, and they are clones. That is, they are morphologically and genetically similar organisms. Example of asexual reproduction is your amoeba and bacteria. You will see asexual reproduction in case of amoeba and bacteria. Next is, you can see here in this picture, the parent cell and the nucleus, it is dividing, right? So this is a parent cell and this is a nucleus. The nucleus, it will divide from the parent cell. So the cytoplasm, it divides here, and from there we are getting what? Two daughter cells. Two daughter cells are being formed, right? So what is this? They are forming the offsprings. The progeny are being formed. That is the parent cell to daughter cells. Again, these daughter cells can form more number of offsprings. Clear? So this division of nucleus is known as karyokinase, and division of cytoplasm is known as cytokinase. Clear? So you can see that there are some organisms in which asexual reproduction is taking place. This is a frog, this is a fish, then here you can see the starfish. Do you know that starfish lacks the brain, but they do have a nervous system. Next is your plant. This is your leaf, sorry. So this is the leaf of a plant where you can see that small plants are growing out, right, from them. So this is a bryophyllum leaf where you will see the asexual reproduction. Understood? Okay. Next, let us see the types of asexual reproduction. What are the various types of asexual reproduction? Here you can see this is a parent there is a cell division taking place, right? And these two daughter cells are being formed. Now, what are the types? First is your binary fission. Next is your budding. Third one is your fragmentation, regeneration, and vegetative propagation. So these are the 5 types of asexual reproduction. Now let us see what happens in them. So what is this binary fission? Binary fission, it takes place in case of bacteria. So it involves the separation of the parent cell into the 2 daughter cells. The parent cells, it divides and separates into how many daughter cells? 2 daughter cells. You know, bacteria, they divide very rapidly and they form large number of colonies. So they come under the prokaryotes. They are the prokaryotic organisms. So it is a mode of reproduction in prokaryotes. Clear? So they are prokaryotic organisms, and bacteria are the oldest living organisms. Clear? They are the primitive living organisms. So this is about binary fission. Next is your budding. What is budding? What happens in budding? In budding, the buds comes out from the parent body, and it slowly gets separated and the new daughter cells are being formed. So see here, it is a process in which the new organism develops from a bud. Clear? So a new organism will be developing from a bud. Next example is your Hydra. In case of Hydra, in case of yeast, they will reproduce following this asexual mode of reproduction. It is one type of the asexual mode of reproduction. So see here, this is a parent body. So the parent body, the small bud is coming out. Okay, from the parent body, the small bud is coming out. This bud, it grows slowly, right? And then it will separate, detach from the parent body, right? So a new daughter cell is being formed here, isn't it? So this is how a new organism is being reproduced, clear? By the process of budding. Next is your fragmentation. What is this fragmentation? Fragmentation means the parent body, it divides into small fragments, and that from small fragments a new organism, clear? A new organism is being formed, and they are morphologically and genetically similar to their parents. They are also the clones of each other. All the asexual reproductive organisms are the clones of each other. So see, here the parent organism breaks into fragments and produces new offsprings. So what happens? The parent organism, it will break into smaller fragments and it will produce a new organism. Example is your planaria and starfish. You will see this fragmentation in planaria and starfish. Next, you can see the picture of a starfish here. This is a parent body where the parent body got separated into smaller fragments, isn't it? It got separated into smaller fragments, and you can see a new daughter cell is being formed here. Clear? So this is how the fragmentation takes place. We see it in case of planaria and starfish. Next is your regeneration. It is also one type of asexual reproduction where the old body parts can be generated. So see, process by which some organism replace or restore the lost body parts. What do you mean by that? The lost body parts are being replaced or restored. What is this? You have experienced sometimes there is a cut in your skin. Skin is your largest organ. When there is a tear of tissue, when there is a cut mark, how it gets replaced? It is because of the regeneration. All the living organism undergoes regeneration from the bacteria to the human beings. Clear? So in that process, what happens? There is a replace or restore of the lost body parts. The lost body parts, we can get it back. Similarly, we can grow the plants by using the plant tissue culture technique in the lab. That is by in vitro, in a in vitro condition. In case of plant biotechnology and animal biotechnology, that is the from the small part of the plant or from the small part of the animal, we can grow a full new organism by the technique of this regeneration. So see here, it is a natural process of replacing damaged tissue cells or organs. So it is a process by which the damaged tissues or the cells or the organs will be replaced. As I was talking about the plant tissue culture, you can see here in this picture, you can see a small part of the plant, right? So this part of the plant is known as explant. We can undergo this tissue culture. We can perform this tissue culture and we can get a plant from the lab under the in vitro condition. In vitro means inside the lab. Clear? So this is the small, this is what? This is a explant. Clear? The explant of the plant can be any parts of the plant. It can be roots, it can be leaves, it can be flower. Okay. So from that, how we are getting? We have to provide them the temperature, the light, everything we have to provide them artificially. And also we are providing them the nutrients. We are providing them the NPK, that is the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, right? Which are the major ingredients for the growth of the plants. So here artificially the nutrients are provided so that the plants can grow inside the lab and appropriate light and temperature is being provided to the plant. So you can see that plant is regenerated from the small part of the plant. Is that clear? So this is regeneration. Next is your vegetative propagation. So what happens in vegetative propagation? This is a leaf. This leaf is known as bryophyllum. Okay. So from that you can see that small plants are coming up, isn't it? So this is one type of asexual reproduction in case of what? In case of plants. So this is a asexual reproduction in plants. Example is your bryophyllum. Alright. Okay. Now there are two types of vegetative propagation. One is your natural vegetative propagation, another is your artificial vegetative propagation. Now what is this natural vegetative propagation? Natural vegetative propagation, you can grow the plant with the help of the roots, stem, the new plant will come up. But in case of artificial vegetative propagation, that is the cutting, grafting, what we have seen in regeneration, that is the tissue culture, that are all the artificial vegetative propagation. And the natural ones, the plants are growing naturally from the root, stem. That is the natural vegetative propagation. Clear? Okay. So there are two types of vegetative propagation. One is natural, another one is artificial. Next is your sexual reproduction. So you can see here in sexual reproduction, we need a male gamete and a female gamete. Clear? Male and a female gamete. They fuse together and they form a zygote. Clear? So these gametes, what do you mean by gametes? Gametes are the reproductive cells. Gametes are the reproductive cells. So it is haploid. The female gamete is haploid, that is haploid means N, and this is also haploid. So it forms a diploid, that is the zygote, which will be your 2N. So from there, from the zygote, a full embryo is being formed, and from the embryo we get a fetus, then a baby. Is that clear? So that is the sexual reproduction. So fusion of gamete takes place and both the parents are involved in sexual reproduction. Now, do you know that in some organisms also, the reproduction does not take place. So some organisms, they do not reproduce, such as mule, then sterile worker bees and infertile human couples. So they do not reproduce. That's why we cannot call reproduction as a definite characteristics of the living organisms. Now, why this mule does not reproduce? Because it has got only 63 chromosomes. It has only 63 chromosomes. Because of the chromosomal abnormality, it cannot reproduce. So, these are the pictures of honey. You can see the sterile worker bees here, and here you can see a mule. Okay, so they cannot reproduce. And the infertile human couples, they cannot reproduce because of the abnormalities in their reproductive organs. Okay. Next characteristics is your metabolism. Now, what do you mean by this metabolism? It is a chemical reaction in body cell that change food into energy. Now, every day we take food, right? Why we take food? To get energy so that we can do all the works properly, right? So metabolism is a process in which we get energy from the food. It is a chemical reaction which is taking place inside our body. So it breaks the food, and from the food we generate the energy in the form of ATP molecules. So it is the sum total of all biochemical reactions. So it is the sum total. Sum total means it is involving both the anabolism and catabolism. So metabolism is a combination of both anabolism and catabolism. Okay. Now what do I mean by this anabolism? Anabolism is basically a constructive process. Now, some of you may be having this habit of collecting the coins, right? You are collecting the coins, and then after a few months or after 1 year you will be counting, right? So you will get 100 rupees or 500 rupees, right? You will be collecting every day 1 rupees, and slowly and gradually the number will be larger in size, right? So where the small molecules, they combine together and form a larger molecules. Clear? So every day you are counting, for example, every day you are collecting 1 rupee a day, right? So slowly and gradually after 1 month, how much you will get? 30 rupees, isn't it? So that is a larger amount, right? So the small amount, from that you are getting a larger amount, right? So similarly, it is a constructive process. What happens in that? The smaller molecules, they combine together and form a larger molecules. So you can see in the picture, the smaller molecules, they are combining together and it forms a larger molecule, and from that we get the energy. So it is a set of metabolic pathways that construct molecules from smaller units. So this is about anabolism. Next is your catabolism. So it is the set of metabolic process that breaks down the larger molecules. So you can see the larger molecule, it's breaking down into smaller molecules, right? For example, you are having 500 rupees and you go to the market, you bring vegetables, then you bring fish, right? So what happens? You are spending all that money. Separately you are spending, right? So one at a time you are spending all the money. So the 500 rupees was larger molecule, for example, and you are spending it into smaller things. You are buying fish, you are buying your vegetables, then you need pen, you need books. So you are buying so many things, isn't it? So the larger molecule, it is breaking down into smaller molecules. Clear? So it is a destructive process, whereas anabolism is a constructive process, whereas catabolism is a destructive process. And from that we get energy. So metabolism is a combination of both anabolism and catabolism. And the last one is your self-consciousness. What do you mean by self-consciousness? Whenever someone slaps you, what happens? You will automatically remove your, for example, you will remove your cheek, right? Or someone is pinching you in your hand, you will remove your hand, right? So you are able to feel that, sense that. So the organism which are able to sense the environment, then only we are called them a living, right? So it is being aware of self. So self-consciousness is being aware of yourself. So it is the ability to sense the surroundings or environment. Now how we are able to sense the environment? It is because of our nervous system. It is because of the nervous system and the hormones. So our nervous system, they are controlling and coordinating our body, right? So our brain, our spinal cord and the nerves, they helps in sensing the environment. They respond to the, there is a stimuli, right? So the electric impulses are being sent to our brain and then only we can respond to the surroundings. Is that clear? What is self-consciousness? All right. Okay. So what we have learned in today's class? We have learned about the meaning of living. Then we have learned about the characteristics of living organisms. What makes living organisms unique? We all have these characteristics. Because of these characteristics, we are called as living being. Now let us understand your pattern of questions in CBSE. What type of question you will get in your examination? There will be your very short type question that will carry a 1 mark. When you give your final examination, you will see that there will be very short type questions that will carry your 1 mark. Then short answer type questions that will carry 2 marks. And again short answer type question will be there that will carry your 3 marks. And long answer type questions will carry your 5 marks. Clear? So your theory paper will be your 70 marks. From that will be the pattern of your marks. Okay. Now we are done with the today's session. Let us assess your understanding, what we have understood from today's class. Can you answer this? How do living organisms grow? You have seen growth, right? How it is taking place? By increase in mass and increase in cell number, right? So the living organisms, they grow either by increase in cell number or by consciousness. How it is helpful for living organisms? It will make the living organism so it enables an organism to respond to various external factors. It is the ability of living organisms to respond to various physical, chemical and biological stimuli from their surroundings. So the living organism will be respond to various physical, chemical, biological stimuli from the surrounding. It's because of your self-consciousness. Okay, next question. How will you differentiate between growth of plants and growth of animals? How? As I have already said that in plants the growth is what? Continuous, right? Whereas in animals the growth stops after a certain period of time. isn't it? So the answer is your, in plants the growth is your throughout the life, as they have what? Which tissue? Meristematic tissue, as they have meristematic regions where the cell division occurs continuously. In animals, the growth occurs only up to a certain age. Is that clear? That is the difference between the growth in plants and animals. Next question is your, what is mean by living? You all can write. What is mean by living? Very easy, right? So give any 4 defining features of the living forms, of the life forms. So give any 4 defining features of life forms. If this question is for 5 marks, you have to explain all the 4 characteristics. If it's for 3 marks, you can just write like this. An organism is said to be living if it shows the characteristics which are different from non-living beings. That is reproduction, metabolism, cellular growth and your growth. Clear? So these are the characteristics. Let's see now the differentiation between the anabolism and catabolism. You can write it down. This is very important for your exam. So you can write down the difference between the anabolism and catabolism. What is this anabolism? What is this? It is the sum total of your constructive process. Clear? So it is the sum total of the constructive process, whereas this catabolism is the sum total of your destructive process. So it is a destructive process. Next is your complex substances are formed from the simpler ones. So in anabolism, the complex substances are being formed, whereas in catabolism, simpler substances are being formed from the complex one. As I have given you example, right? You have seen about example of money. Okay. Energy is stored in anabolism, whereas in catabolism what happens? Energy is released. So write down this difference between the anabolism and catabolism. Okay. Now let us solve some MCQ questions. So metabolism refers to, what is the answer here? What will be the answer? Okay. The metabolism refers to the gain or release of energy. Clear? So metabolism, what happens? The gain or release of energy will take place. Next is, what are the twin characteristics of your growth? Increase in mass, increase in number, both A and B, and none of the above. What happens in growth? Both. Okay. Increase in mass and increase in number, both is taking place, right? When growth occurs, there is an increase in mass and increase in what? Increase in cell number. Clear? So both A and B is your answer. Okay. The defining characteristics of living being. What is the defining characteristics from here? They reproduce, they can digest their food, they respond to external stimuli, or they regenerate. Which one do you think? As I have said that there are some organisms, they cannot reproduce. So we cannot call the reproduction as the defining characteristics. So they respond to external stimuli. Number 3 is the correct answer. Alright. Next, the number of species that are known and described range between how many number of species are there? It is 1.7 to 1.8 million species of plants and animals are present in this living world. So the correct answer is your number 3, that is 1.7 to 1.8 million. This we have already seen. Okay. Next is your reproduction cannot be an all-inclusive defining characteristic features of living organism, because all living organisms do not show growth, first one. Then many living organisms do not reproduce. Second one is the answer. That is, many living organisms, they do not reproduce. Clear? Next is your, which of the following organism can sense and respond to environmental cues? So both the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. Answer is your both A and B. Clear? Let us see some of the interesting facts about the living organism. Do you know that ants are the living creatures which will never sleep? They never sleep. Then human teeth are the only part which cannot repair themselves. Then honey is the only food that does not get spoiled. Next is your human bones are about 5 times stronger than steel. And elephants have the largest brain, which is 1% of their total body mass. Clear? And a human skull is composed of 29 different bones. So in human skull there is 29 different bones. And the human little finger contributes about 50% of the total hand strength. So this is some of the interesting facts about the living creatures. So I hope you have enjoyed today's session. So to get all the video lectures of my class, be connected with Vista's learning. Today I have discussed with you all about the characteristics of living organism. In my next class, I will be starting with the diversity and the taxonomic classification. Till then, be connected with Vista's learning and keep learning and keep